right, there we go. Hey, Nadia, how's it
Hi,
going?
good to see
Hi.
you.
Thank you. You too. I'm actually really looking forward to this interview. I think well, for those of you that don't, probably most of you don't know this story, but Nadia and I have actually known each other since I think it was 2007.
Something like
And
that.
I
Yeah.
started working at yeah. So when I moved to Australia in 2007 and was working at Robert Walters in Sydney, Nadia was on the team. So we actually were in corporate together
I
all
think we
those
sat
years
next to each
ago.
other.
Well,
I
yeah,
think
we
we sat
sat next
right
to
next
each
to each
other.
other. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I forgot that. That is so
Yeah.
crazy. That was almost 20 years ago.
Yeah. It's crazy. It's a
Wow,
long time.
that is a long time. So we kind of both, well, you left recruitment before I did because you left to go
Mhm.
and start your yoga. I think you were into like yoga and you started your
Yeah.
yoga studio and all of
Yeah.
that. I
Mhm.
left corporate to go traveling. And then of course we both like got married, had kids, kind of did our own thing for like 15 years. And then we came back together through you wanting to build another part of your business, right? Like I think, did you close down your yoga studio?
I actually sold them before COVID.
You sold the studio before
Um,
COVID. Yeah.
yes. And then I had a big car accident and which kind of forced me to rethink my career and retrain in something because the physical element of my previous work wasn't considered to be viable at that point.
Yeah.
So I joined you, and I think I initially wanted to be a business coach. And then after like a short period, I just realized I was lying to myself.
That's right. I remember that. You kind of had this whole like, is this what I want to do? I don't think this is what I want to do. I feel like this is what I should do, but this isn't what I want to do. And it was kind of this up
Yeah.
and down, in and out for the first little bit.
And what was funny is that after the accident, I went through, I worked with a therapist very closely, and there was a lot of this work around finding a career, a new career, which for me has always been something that comes from the heart. But the therapist that I work with, while she was wonderful, I think she was I don't know, she was steering me toward avenues that were perhaps less about the heart and more about just steady incomes. So the first thing I had said I wanted to do was to study nutrition. And I don't know, we kind of went through this whole assessment. At that point, I was pretty unstable and not really at a point where I could make good decisions. And we went through this whole assessment of like whether it was going to be viable, like how much money I would make, et cetera, and decided wasn't going to do it. So I just kind of wiped that. And I think it was part of the way through your program. I guess it was all the mindset work and that I realized that I was being a fraud. So I took
That's
a break
right.
and I went and
Yes.
studied and then I came
I
back.
remember that. That's
Yeah.
right. I had forgotten about that whole part, but you did. We were like, let's let you go and figure out what it is that you really want to do.
Yeah.
And that's right. And then you
Yeah.
came back swinging.
Mhm. Yeah. So
Yeah.
what was good was that, I mean, guess while I was studying, and I had a really good background in this anyway because I'd worked in women's health for so long and would incorporate a lot of health and nutrition in my teachings, particularly when I did retreats, and I had studied Ayurveda. So I did have a pretty sound understanding. I wasn't coming from zero. But whilst I was studying nutrition, I was also thinking about all the modules and things that were in your program. So I was already figuring it out.
Yeah. How can I
Yeah.
apply this to this
Yes.
line of work? Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah,
In this
for
role.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and then when you came back into the program, you hit the ground running fairly quickly. And I remember celebrating an $8,000 month or $10,000 month, I can't remember, with you fairly quickly. But what was it that really took you from studying and having no clients to having clients starting to come in and starting to earn money and starting to earn income? What were you doing that started to really get that traction for you and make that happen?
So I said the first thing was getting my confidence up. And I think in your program, it was having the recommendation of having those beta clients while you're building the program. That was so good because I really built the program. I had already sort of been through it myself, so I knew what I was doing. But when I was going through it, I wasn't really putting processes around it. Whereas when I worked with the beta clients, I was, and I began to see, a pattern. And then I first paid client came through one of those beta clients. So that happened pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And then it was doing all the reach outs. It was really just consistently reaching out and letting people know what I was doing. That became the bread and butter at the start. So that was how I initially started to get clients. And then as my confidence grew, I began to feel more confident talking on social media, and my confidence in workshops grew, and I began to get clients through those workshops. So
yeah, awesome. I think that's the biggest thing is like, honestly, people feel, so a lot of times in the beginning, people feel really afraid of even putting themselves out there and say, this is what I'm doing. Like you and I are both like, yeah, we put ourselves out there and we say what we're doing. Like, it's not a big deal, but how did you even get the confidence to put yourself out there in a way of like, people don't know me this way. They know me as this, but not as this. How did you get over that hurdle of being able to actually say, well, here's what I'm doing now?
that was really hard.
Yeah, it's
and
hard.
I really, that took a long time for me to jump over that hurdle, because I had never really had a complex around putting myself out there as a yoga teacher. I don't know, I'd been doing it for so long, and I guess I had been doing it since before all the social media. So it didn't seem like such a leap. Yeah, to be honest, I think you get over the hurdle by getting over the hurdle, like by just almost pushing it down.
I know, it's like doing
just by doing it, and then the more you do it, the less you think about it. And I've got to say, I still don't really like posting on social media. It's not my favorite thing to do. But it doesn't make me feel sick in the same way. It doesn't, I don't feel like a fraud. I don't feel like a fraud. I feel like, I know this stuff works because I've seen it work now with so many women. And I've seen it turn so many women's lives around. So actually that is what invigorates me. I just love that. I love when I speak to a client and I've been working with them for, 4 weeks, and suddenly they've lost a heap of weight. They've got heaps of energy. They're sleeping, and they just feel amazing and alive and like themselves. And that is what drives me completely.
For sure. And I think that's what we teach in the program, right? It's like not necessarily selling to somebody. Like we don't even teach, I mean, in module 6, I say like, take out the word sales and just be of service. So like by you knowing that you can create this transformation in these women's lives and putting it out there and saying, here's what's possible, you're doing your due diligence of sharing how you can help and support, and then giving them the option, like, here's how you can explore working with me, right? Like you're giving them an invitation to then come and lean closer. So it's not like you're out there trying to sell. It's like, here's what I do. If this is you, come and, chat with me. It's just a different vibe, I think.
Not recruitment.
Yes. We both hated recruitment. What were we doing? Oh my God.
Yeah, it's really a softer approach. And, and a lot of the people that I'm reaching out to will never become clients. A lot of the people that I reach out to, and that's fine. I still love that I get to help them too. And you also just never know who they know, if, who they're going to tell and who they're going to forward it to, and, and the impact that you can be making as, just through those little outreach.
Definitely.
Doing those little outreach posts. So
if someone were in your shoes right now and they're trying to decide, or they're in the very beginning stages of their business and they're struggling with what you were, can I do this? Is this going to work for me? How do I even start? Where do I start? What would just be one piece of advice that you'd have for them?
Just start where you're at.
Yeah.
And don't expect to be, but don't feel any pressure to be any further ahead than where you are, is what I'm trying to say. Don't get overwhelmed with what you have to do in the future. And just do what you need to do now. And when it comes to making a decision, I mean, there has to be some viability to what you're doing. There has to be people who want what you're doing. So choose something that you love, and then try and find a way to apply that, to people that need it.
Yeah.
There's an audience.
Yeah.
Where you can actually be of service, because there are enough people that need what you're offering. So Yeah.
Yeah, we had conversations about that kind of early on, didn't we? Like I remember at the beginning, you were kind of in and out around your niche and like you said before, what you wanted to do. Do you think that finally deciding on something and sticking to it was what gave you that like exponential growth? Because it just happened all of a sudden. It was like
Yeah.
stall, 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 and then you were, phew.
I think it was like what I was saying earlier, it was seeing the progress in the women. And to be honest,
Yeah.
if I was working in a different niche but saw that progress, I would also feel really excited by it.
Yeah.
It didn't, that's what I'm saying. If you choose to do nutrition, choose a niche where you can really be of service and you will feel excited by the results of your clients, and that will be enough to skyrocket your business.
That's where like the soul piece comes in, right? It's like, I think starting a business for the sake of starting a business or just because of the money, like you talked about earlier, it's not going to work because you're not excited about it. You
Mhm.
feel salesy at that point. You don't have some higher reason for doing the thing. You're just, yeah. So I think that makes
Yes.
total sense. Yeah.
And that was what I found really difficult when I was trying to get into the business coaching, is because, yes, I had built successful businesses before, but it was never what I loved doing. When I had those yoga studios, I didn't love the business side of it. I outsourced that quite quickly.
Yeah. I did not know that.
Yeah, I loved teaching and I
Yeah.
loved community building and
Yeah.
I loved putting on events and things like that. But the business stuff was never what interested me. So when I started to build out the program for the business coaching, it really made me feel like I was going to be sick
I
because,
remember you saying that.
yes, I was like, also thinking, how am I going to talk about this all day? Because I don't love it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was definitely the right decision for you to go inwards and really get clear on what it was that you wanted to do. I remember having that conversation with you too.
Yeah. And when you're choosing your niche, I suppose it's important to remember that it's something you're going to be talking about a lot,
Yeah.
not just on social media, but, for instance, when people find out what you do, there's going to be parents coming up to you at school who want to talk about what you do because it
Yeah.
affects them. And there's going to, when you tell people at a party what you do, they're going to be interested and want to ask you questions. So you do need to love talking about it.
Yeah, I agree with that
Yeah.
completely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, if someone were, so there's a lot of women that watch these interviews too, and they're looking at SBA as a program,
Mhm.
maybe comparing it with some others out there. What would you share with them if they're thinking about joining SBA?
What I loved was the varied support. So the one-on-one coaching calls, but the weekly coaching calls, and the fact that they were on 2 times. I don't know what the format is now because it has been a while, but there were 2 different times, which meant that if you missed one, you could catch up another one. And the fact that there were different people, I loved that there was a copywriter that
Yeah.
came on. And
Yeah.
I just found that so useful in a practical sense. There was just really real practical help,
Yeah.
and I really appreciated that and insights. So, and the actual program itself, what you've got in your portal, it's really easy to follow, and
Yeah.
I feel like anyone can do it.
Yeah,
If you
definitely.
just follow the steps, anyone can do it. It's not complicated. It's really simple stuff, and it doesn't feel daunting when you go through it. It feels
Yeah.
achievable. So I would say that was, just an excellent part of the program,
Yeah.
and that it was so focused around the heart and
Yeah.
what's going to serve your community and what is going to serve to nourish you as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Not trying to make you do something repeatedly 4,000 times that just feels so out of alignment. Like we really try
That's
and steer
right.
clear of all of that stuff too. And then, yeah, I think it was everything that I just wish I would have had in the beginning, like the support, the guidance, and then knowing what strategies work at that level. Like I think also is why it's super helpful too. It's just the
Yeah.
strategies work at the beginning stages, or they work if you're further along and you're wanting to add income to your business. It's not like
Mhm.
the tech, there's no ads, no funnels, none of that to try and work
It's
through
not
all.
expensive to put
Yeah.
in place.
Yeah.
It's you're not going to spend money on ads that don't work. You can figure that out later
Yeah, definitely.
when you've got a bit more of an audience. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, when you're ready to scale, those are scale strategies. Amazing. Well, thank you so much for sharing. Where can we find you? Where can we find you? Do you have a website you want to share? Socials?
Do. So
Tell us.
my website is nadiarehani.com and my social media is perimenopause nutritionist _ Nadia.
Love so much. Perimenopause is such a buzzword right now. I mean, especially for women my age also. Yeah, and it's just such needed work. I think people are really shining a light on it now, which is so great.
It's such a difficult phase. And I think what women find really difficult, particularly in the early stages of perimenopause, is coming to terms with the fact that they might be in perimenopause and
Yeah.
the inevitability of that and what that means.
Yeah.
And a lot of women just have a very difficult time just saying, yes, I am in peri.
Yeah.
Even though we are almost certainly in perimenopause, our hormones start changing from the age of 35. So, whether you are or you're not, you are. I don't know.
Yes. And like also reach out and seek help. I kind of learned that the hard way. I just was like, over the last few years, I was going through a lot in my life, but my anxiety was just unusually out of control and I was not sleeping. I could not stay asleep more than 2 hours at a time. I'd be up for hours in the night. Like everything just felt really out of whack. I would crash so hard during the day. And it just kind of dawned on me. Someone on my team was like, have you had your hormone levels tested? You might be in perimenopause. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh, and
Oh, what was
surely,
that?
yep, I absolutely am. So
Yeah, and we don't. I think for women, it's also they feel very disconnected with who they are. I think when you
yeah,
get to menopause, you don't feel like yourself, but you're still in your body. And
yeah,
many women don't feel like they're in their body because their body changes so much with the hormones, and
yes,
there's just this real disconnect, and it's very depressing.
yeah,
And a lot of women feel like, oh, this is inevitable. This is a part of life. It is inevitable. Perimenopause and menopause are inevitable, but how you approach it is not. There is so much that can be changed that is not even that difficult. It's just really small tweaks that we make, and they have a huge impact. I have this one client who, she's like, I'd say she's 52. So she's at the very end of her perimenopause journey. So she'd be going through menopause soon. And she had been feeling pretty crap for, I would say, like 12 years.
oh my gosh.
Had no energy. She put on about 18 kilos.
Yeah.
So she messaged me the other day and she has lost about 15 of those kilos. But after, I think it was 1 week, it was 1 or 2 weeks, it was after our first appointment, she sent me a text message and said, she works in a childcare centre, and said, oh my goodness, today I had so much energy. I haven't had this much energy since my 20s. I found myself jumping on the trampoline with the kids, and all the other carers at the daycare centre were like, what into you? And she just said, I have this just abundance of energy. So addressing these things can help you at work because you have more energy, more clarity, and a greater ability to handle stress. So if you
Absolutely.
are struggling, in a work capacity or just to get through daily tasks that you weren't struggling with 10 years ago, then yeah, it's definitely something to think about and to investigate.
For
And
sure.
the testing may not show what you're looking for because testing is often inaccurate, but if you're of a certain age and you've got more than 3 symptoms, then you can be pretty sure.
That's so great to know. And obviously you're in Australia. Do you work with women internationally
I
or?
do,
Yeah,
yeah.
great.
I have
Perfect.
got clients in Europe. I've got a client in New York, and clients in the Middle East as well. So I work on Zoom, and I have a whole online program as well, which people can access, in between, which has a lot of teachings and videos and fitness plans and recipes and a lot of guidance there. So yeah.
So life-changing. Yes. Thank you for doing this work, Nadia. And yeah, please reach out to Nadia if you're in this space for sure. Thank you so much for doing this with me, Nadia. I so appreciate
And
you.
thank you, Erica. Thank you for everything. It really was such a journey, and it was life-changing. So I do really appreciate all
I
of you,
adore you.
all that you've given me.
Thank you. I adore you.
And you.